Before Avatar: The Last Airbender became the show we all know and love, there was an earlier version of the story. A version before all the ideas were fully locked in, and before certain characters had the chance to evolve and iconic lines had yet to be written. And reading through all of it, it honestly feels like we're just taking a peek into an alternate reality of Avatar. Going through the series Bible of A till A, many things are still the same. The Four Nations are here, obviously the Avatar cycle is still here, Katara and Sokka still find Aang frozen in an iceberg, Zuko is still the same angsty, scarred, and banished prince chasing the Avatar, and of course we're still building towards that final confrontation between Ozai and Aang. But all of the details in between, those are completely different. For example, Toph and Azula are both males. While Toph is still referred to as Toph, Azula is actually now Prince Azul. You guys remember when Zuko found Appa and he didn't think things through, he didn't have a plan? Iroh shows up and this all plays a big part in his later on redemption. In this version, Zuko actually did have a plan. He was going to take Appa and bring him as a gift to Ozai. Uncle Iroh was also not the loving uncle that we remember him as. Instead, he was under strict orders from Ozai to teach Zuko incorrect firebending. And all of this may sound like a lot, but we are really just scratching the surface of what's inside this series Bible. So if you will, just kick back, relax, grab a snack, maybe a drink, and let's go through the original Avatar series together. And I mean that literally because I haven't really read through the full thing yet. Apparently people say online there's like a love square or triangle between Toph, Zuko, Aang, and Katara. I don't know if that's true, so let's find out together. A lot of the original ideas or changes or whatever you guys want to call them that you guys are going to hear about as we go through the series Bible are going to sound kind of insane, but I need you guys to keep in mind that this was before all of the different writers and different people got involved in Avatar. This was just two guys who had a dream compiling all of their thoughts into a document to pitch a cool series to Nickelodeon. So with that said, let's begin. The Avatar series Bible opens up with the basic premise of the series. In a lost age, power is balanced between the four great nations: water, earth, fire, and air. Each nation has men and women who can manipulate their native element, called waterbenders, earthbenders, firebenders, and airbenders. The Avatar is described as the spirit of the planet in human form, the only person who can master all four elements and maintain world order. Disaster strikes when the current Avatar dies. The Fire Nation's leaders use that moment to launch a global war with the goal to eliminate not just the Air Nation, like in the version we got, but also the Water and Earth Nations. 100 years later, Katara and Sokka discover a 12-year-old airbender trapped inside of an iceberg. He wakes up hungry for food and adventure and immediately reveals himself as the Avatar. Alright, I'm sure you guys can tell this is already a lot different. Not only with the Avatar being the Earth's literal manifestation in human form, but the question around the whole series isn't just whether Aang can save the world anymore, it's whether this irresponsible kid will accept his destiny in time. So far, I think this whole thing feels pretty shonen-brained, almost like Naruto. Waking up, immediately thinking about food, irresponsible kid, framed as the problem in everybody else's life. The Avatar cycle, and of course the four elements, are also tied heavily into the seasons. Water is winter, earth is spring, fire is summer, autumn is air. That seasonal idea matters a lot in this version, and they do touch on this a little bit more later on, and we'll get to that. It says the new Avatar is expected to show signs of continuity with the previous one, like being born within a week of the previous Avatar's death. And then once they reach maturity, they travel the world and train under the other bending arts. And that is supposed to be the normal path. They specify that Aang's story is only happening because that normal path is completely broken. This part isn't too different except for being born within the week. We kind of saw it happen instantly in the version we got. The origins of the 100-year-long war is similar but different enough that it's worth mentioning. So unlike in Avatar: The Last Airbender, Sozin and Roku weren't ever friends. Sozin was just an evil ruler who rose to power, who was just constantly trying to bring the world to war, with Roku foiling him multiple times over. It wasn't until Roku dies of unknown causes that Sozin builds a massive armada of ships and grows a huge army of firebenders. He did this in secret for over 12 years. When Sozin's comet arrives, they use the power of the comet to attack all nations at the same time, but their primary goal was still to wipe out the air nomads. Here is another really interesting change. Instead of the Fire Nation wiping out the air nomads, the night of the comet, in this version it takes him over a month to do it. Sozin assumes the Avatar died during the this time, but we all know Aang is actually trapped in ice. I like this detail a lot right here. Sozin destroying the air nomads disrupted the natural cycle so much, it makes future Avatar reincarnations impossible. Aang is not only the last airbender, but also the last Avatar. Before we go over the 3 seasons and what those 3 seasons are going to contain, I have to spend just a little bit of time to tell you about the main characters. Some of these character descriptions are gonna blow your mind, trust me. Aang at his core is mostly the same if we're being generous, but there is one part about him that makes him unbearable. If you've watched the unaired pilot, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The difference is that this version leans a lot harder into the fact that Aang is a trickster. They even call him a trickster. He plays pranks, he breaks traditions, he follows animals into danger, purposely ignores good advice, and constantly takes the most roundabout path possible. He desperately wants to find the air nomads and truly believes that they're out there hiding, and it's all that's on his mind. It even states that the arrow on his head is a constant reminder to him of his goal, finding the air nomads. His backstory is also familiar, just with some weird details. The monks discover that he is the Avatar. They tell him early on because danger's coming, just like what we remember. They intensify his training, and then Aang runs away before getting trapped in ice. But it specifically says airbending has 36 levels to it. Aang has only ever mastered 35 of them, and he struggles with the final one. I really want to know which final one he was meant to struggle with. Katara's character description is pretty much exactly what we saw in the show, even if some of her scenes do play out differently. Character description wise, she is the same. She's 14, she's caring, passionate, emotional, and the heart of the show. She wants to become a waterbender to save her tribe, and her mother's death still shapes her deeply. One of the differences is that her healing ability is mentioned much earlier, and it says that it's a part of who she is. Sokka is also familiar, but a little more extreme. He's sarcastic, stubborn, protective, loyal, and desperate to be seen as a warrior. He has his father's boomerang and wants to reunite with him, but this version, he is more openly anti-bending. He believes benders are a part of what got the world in trouble, and ordinary men like him are the ones who will defeat the Fire Nation. Zuko is pretty much exactly the same, except for the strange detail of him sending Ozai battle trophies, and for some reason is building a metal statue of him, only for Ozai to reject all of it. But the biggest Zuko difference is actually tied to Iroh. Zuko trains with Iroh every single day, but he doesn't know that Iroh is under strict orders from Ozai to teach him incorrect firebending so Zuko never becomes strong enough to surpass his father. That detail completely changes everything. Zuko's a prodigy being purposely sabotaged, and we have Iroh who never got redeemed. Iroh's character description still says he likes tea, meditation, calligraphy, and all of that stuff, but he's just a lot less developed. He's there to be comic relief on Zuko's ship and to teach him bad firebending, and that's it. The bending system is actually a little bit more complex than what we got. Benders are stronger in certain seasons or locations. Waterbenders are strongest in the winter and at the north and south poles. Firebenders are strongest in the summer and near the equator. The sun and comet also help firebenders. The moon and rain help waterbenders. Fault lines help earthbenders, and windstorms help airbenders. It also says that benders are born according to the seasons, and because summers are lengthening, the Fire Nation is producing more benders while the other nations are producing fewer. I think that detail is super cool and I like it. When you really think about it, fire should be one of the weaker elements. A big rock stops fire, water stops it, air can either enhance it or be so strong that it blows it out. So making it to where the Fire Nation just has sheer numbers over everybody else and that's how they're winning, that makes sense to me. Book 1 starts very close to the final show. Katara and Sokka find Aang and Appa in an iceberg. They learn that Aang is the Avatar when Zuko attacks the Southern Water Tribe looking for him. From here, things play out exactly the same until they get to the Southern Air Temple. There, Aang contacts Avatar Roku and finds Momo. It doesn't specify what Roku tells him, it just says they met. When Aang sees Momo, he sees it as some sort of proof that part of his people may still be alive. Later, during the winter solstice, Aang enters the spirit world and contacts Avatar Roku again. Here, just like in our version, Roku tells him about the comet and how the Fire Lord is going to use it to win the war. From here, Aang and Katara begin to try to learn how to waterbend, but Aang is unfocused and would rather play. Yep, you heard that right. He would rather play. Katara finds an ancient waterbending scroll and they think they can learn from it, but after several mishaps, they realize they need a real teacher. Now, here's where things just get kind of insane. Katara and Sokka learn that Aang ran away from the Air Temple because he feared his responsibility, which is why he spent 100 years trapped in ice. Katara is now furious, and she believes if Aang had not run away, the war would not have started and her mother would still be alive. She blames Aang for her mother's death. I could never imagine our version of Katara blaming Aang for her mother's death. That is just crazy. Now, after this happens, Aang wants to prove that he's responsible, so he tries to firebend before he's ready, and he accidentally burns Katara's hands. He feels so guilty he vows to never firebend again. Meanwhile, Sokka decides he just doesn't have what it takes, and he leaves. He joins another group of warriors, but after experiencing real battle, his fantasy of warrior life is shattered, and he begins to discover his real role as a leader. God, this just sounds like the worst day in the world for Team Avatar. Katara starts blaming Aang for her mother's death. Aang, for some reason, was like, okay, well, I should firebend now, and then burns her, and then her brother just leaves. He just straight up leaves after this. This is what haters of the Netflix adaptation make it sound like. Eventually, Aang and Katara reconcile. Katara discovers her healing abilities. Sokka also randomly comes back, and the group together, they go to the North Pole. So like in our version, the waterbending master refuses to teach Katara due to the tribe's sexist culture. Aang still trains with him, but he struggles a lot. So much so that the master completely gives up on him. He's like, this kid is unteachable, and just gives up. This causes Katara to confront the master. She challenges him, they fight, and she proves her ability as a waterbender. He then accepts both Aang and Katara back as students. The season ends with Commander Zhao leading a Fire Nation attack on the Northern Water Tribe. Aang fights Zuko and spares his life. Then, with Katara and the help of the Old Master, Aang creates a giant water tornado that drives the Fire Nation ships into the ice. The Old Master is nearly killed and tells Katara that she alone has the knowledge to complete Aang's waterbending training. Book 2 is also where things just feel uncanny, I guess. Team Avatar travels to the Earth Kingdom while Zuko, Prince Azul, and a rogue earthbender all continue their separate pursuits of the Avatar. This rogue earthbender is only mentioned right here. He's not mentioned anywhere else. I don't know what happens with this guy or who he is. Aang's search for an earthbending teacher eventually leads him to Toph, but in this version, Toph is a young, blind earthbending boy whose arrogance matches his power. Katara is drawn to him over his confidence. Sparks fly between them and Aang gets jealous. Sokka also dislikes Toph because he doesn't trust him. He thinks Katara only likes him out of sympathy and resents him for taking away his role as a leader. That's crazy. They all switched up on their day one Sokka and just made this random kid their new leader. At some point, Zuko captures Appa alive and gives him to Ozai as a gift. Without Appa, the group has to travel by raft, with the help of Katara's waterbending to move them down the Earth Kingdom rivers. I honestly have no idea how Zuko alone could capture Appa, but man, maybe Zuko is just Thanos in this version. The group heads towards the Earth Kingdom's capital and meets with the Emperor, who tells Aang about a secret plan to invade the Fire Nation. Now, this next part is going to sound like a joke, but it's not. So, because Aang promises to not reveal this secret, he uses riddles so his friends can guess the secret without technically breaking his promise. Like, dude, what are you, Winter 2025 Appa Comics? By the end of spring, they reach a hidden camp where the Earth Kingdom is preparing its counterattack. Katara and Sokka reunite with their father and the men of the Water Tribe, who have been helping the Earth Navy build giant battleships. Then comes the day of the Black Sun. During the total eclipse, firebenders lose their ability to create flames, and the Earth Kingdom launches its invasion into the Fire Nation. Sokka's father asks him to fight with him, but Sokka chooses to stay with Aang. He now fully believes in Aang fulfilling his destiny, so he takes on the responsibility of getting him to his final duel. So season 2 ends right before the day of the Black Sun hits. Wow, that is a curveball. I can't say I expected that one. So right now, you guys might be thinking, oh, they're just gonna end the series with the day of the Black Sun, Aang taking out Ozai during this time. But no, that's not actually how it works. They simply use the day of the Black Sun to advance the Earth Kingdom troops into Fire Nation territory. This whole thing wasn't about taking out the Fire Lord. It wasn't about ending the war. It was simply using this day to get as much of an advantage as possible before the comet arrives. Book 3 takes the group into the Fire Nation. The comet is quickly approaching, so Aang, Katara, Sokka, and Toph search the Fire Nation for a firebending master who's willing to teach Aang. Meanwhile, during all of this, Zuko finally returns home, and he finds out his people are enslaved and they're living in poverty. He speaks out against Ozai again and vows to take the throne from him, and he goes into hiding after after Ozai sends deadly firebenders to capture him. Zuko grows out his hair and he lives in a small village among ordinary Fire Nation people. Now this is super interesting to me. Zuko's motives to go up against Ozai is for his people. He sees the hardship this war is causing them and decides it needs to end. It's reversed, but I think it does still kind of work. Obviously, like everyone else, I think the original way is way better. Zuko experiencing the world from the other side's perspective and slowly changing, but this is an interesting take, I guess. Eventually, Team Avatar and Zuko come into contact, and Zuko asks for Aang's help in defeating the Fire Lord. Sokka thinks this is all a trap, but Katara senses genuine change in him. Aang agrees to help Zuko in exchange for firebending lessons, and the group cautiously accepts him. Now, this is where things just kind of start to fall apart. For weeks, Zuko trains Aang, but Aang is still afraid of fire because of when he burned Katara. Then Zuko fights Iroh and learns that his uncle had been teaching him false firebending techniques. And because Zuko's own firebending is flawed, he decides Aang cannot learn from him. And this makes Aang realize that he's not going to master firebending in time before the comet arrives. The group briefly considers waiting, but Aang knows that Ozai's going to use the comet to destroy the Earth Nation's army. So he alone flies off to Ozai's fortress. He decides we gotta end this right now. During this time, Ozai's firebenders capture Zuko and Katara, while Sokka and Toph escape. Aang reaches the Fire Nation's fortress, but Ozai has set up a trap. Hundreds of firebenders surround him. Aang's tattoos begin to glow, and his avatar spirit seals him inside of a sphere of stone. The firebenders pick up this big ball of stone and bring him to Ozai. But even Ozai, he can't break the shell. God, this just sounds so goofy. This is like an episode of Tom and Jerry. Meanwhile, Sokka and Toph track Zuko and Katara back to the fortress. Here they find a fleet of Fire Nation airships and discover Appa alive. This whole time, Appa's been gone. Sokka frees Appa, and they all hijack a warship and they use it to destroy the rest of the fleet, clearing the way for the Earth forces to get to the fortress. The final Agni Kai between Zuko and his brother take place here, except it's not really an Agni Kai. Zuko and Katara just kind of 2v1 Azul and it's over. The comet has finally arrived and Ozai's power has doubled. Aang is still in that stone ball thing, so Ozai harnesses the power of the comet to break open the stone. Now Aang is forced to actually fight. During the fight, he mostly uses air and water and earthbending, but Ozai has the upper hand. Then, during the fight, Aang learns how to firebend by watching Ozai. It's like he has the Sharingan or something, because he starts copying Ozai's moves and adding them to his arsenal, and then uses those moves to defeat him. Once Ozai is defeated, Aang doesn't kill him. Instead, he uses a technique only known to the Avatar, and that is the power to take away Ozai's firebending. Apparently, this is just an Avatar technique. He's just always had this in his arsenal for some reason. No lion turtles, just, bending gun. It's just something the Avatar can do. It's just one of those things, In the epilogue, Zuko becomes a Fire Lord. He vows to work with the Avatar to not only restore the Fire Nation, but also the rest of the world. Toph returns to the Earth Kingdom to help the Emperor rebuild. Katara and Sokka reunite with their father and sail home to rebuild the Southern Water Tribe. Aang and Momo reunite with Appa and fly away in search of the air nomads, because Aang believes that they're still out there. He firmly believes that there is an unexplored part of the world that they're going to be at. So yeah, a little sad. They all go their separate ways. No Katang. It even says Aang finally got the life he always wanted, a life full of adventure. So, just him, Appa, and Momo adventuring the world, I guess. Yeah, I mean, pretty sad. You can see the potential here of how this became so great. You get a team of talented writers on this. You have Mike and Brian bounce off even more ideas off of them. You can see how this became so amazing, but it is just a little cursed reading, the first draft. All right, guys, that's it. That was a long video. I gotta go. Peace out. Like, subscribe. Bye.